Hi, I'm Dalen with Mizu Inc. Today I'll be showing you how to install fiberglass encapsulation on a fiberglass shell. So one of the first things we do when we install our fiberglass encapsulation is we want to set up a string line. As you know, on a fiberglass shell, they never come quite perfectly square and even and straight. So what we want to do is when we're installing our encapsulation, we want to make sure we're making a perfect squared picture frame basically on top of that fiberglass shell. With the string line, now we have that straight edge to follow on all those three sides. So we'll go one on that back side, two on the long sides. And what we want to do is we want to run it past, on the end, past where your cover box is going to go, because we want to make sure this cover box is running parallel to that encapsulation on that far side. So no matter what happens, that cover, even though the fiberglass shell might be out of square and it might be, a little bowed here or there, we'll be able to hide those imperfections with our encapsulation and make sure the cover runs great. I'll cause a landslide, hopefully. So here's a little trick for you, if you guys already don't know this, but this is a new string line. Obviously, you see how shiny it is. So what I found is it gets really slippery. So what I do is rub some dirt into it. That way when I tie my knots or do my little slip knots, it's not gonna slip as easy. So just kind of a little trick, helps me out, maybe it'll help you out. So on this side, your string line set, want to make sure kind of like where it's at, where that stake's at. That's pretty good. Here's another trick. So I don't have to tie another knot in it to keep it nice and tight. Make a loop, spin it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Put it around the loop. And what you do is you pull one, kind of push the other. And what it's doing is it's pulling the slack out of this line across the pool. Do that knot, pull that back, nice and tight. You can slide the knot back. That is going to do is make a nice tension knot. You don't have to cut your string line, and makes it really nice and tight. Okay, so we've got our string lines right where we want them. We've kind of measured them out, make sure they're nice and square and parallel. You get a speed square, check your lines right there on the money. You can also mark out your 3, 4, 5. So we mark out 3 feet, 4 feet, and measure the diagonal, and if it's 5 feet, you got a square. Next, what we're going to do is we'll go and make sure we clean up the top of the shell, make sure it's nice and ready for us to screw our encapsulation down to the top of it, removing any rocks, dirt, sand, whatever, get it out of the way. So when our encapsulation will sit nice and perfectly flush to the shell. Sweet. So this is our fiberglass encapsulation. Biggest thing to note on it is this, it's like a 1/4 inch offset, or how it sits off the shell. This is so when the cover is coming out of the cover box, it has that clearance over that bond wall, or that wall in between the cover box and the shell. This is the pool side, this open side, and this channel here is where we'll put our screws through it. So now we're going to go set it on the shell. What we want to do is we're going to start on the side opposite of the cover box. So start on the shell end right here, make that nice and square, set our legs on each side, making sure that our encapsulation is sitting square, and we'll screw it all down. So it's going to lay it all out. So these encapsulation sticks come in 21-foot lengths. So obviously we're going to have to trim down this back piece. So there's 2 options. You either get some black pre-made corners that you can install. On this one we don't have any, so we're just going to run this back piece back past within the outside of the encapsulation we'll install on this side. So just kind of eyeballing it just so we can, square it off. We'll kind of cut it right to here. Because we can see this is where the front of my encapsulation is going to sit on our string line. So that will give me plenty pass on either side. So we're going to set down these pieces, making sure it's nice and square following our string line. I always double check it just because, things can move. Nice and perfect. So what we'll do is screw down this back side, screw on the long side. So in your hardware kit, it'll come with some self-tappers, a bunch of 5/16 stainless steel screws, 5/16 hex head screws. This is what we're going to use to attach it to the shell. Some spring pins and splices. These are what you use to attach the joints of the encapsulation, and some more zinc self-tappers. And also instruction guide. So how we're going to attach this to the shell These stainless steel screws, 5/16 head. What we're going to do is we're going to pre-drill a hole. This is a 3/16 drill bit. What we're going to do is we're going to go down every about 2 feet or so, right center of that flange. Just popping through the top of the shell. Get this guy. I'm going to do the other corner, and then every about 2 feet or so, lock it in place. And we'll do the same thing on this long piece, the next long piece, once we squared them off. In the video, it looks like it's just me. As soon as we do the time lapse, 5 guys run out and. So to splice the 2 pieces together, we're going to get spring pins, these little rolled metal pieces, and this splice. So as you can see, the spring pins, one will go in that little round groove there. You can see that. There, can you see it? And then right in that corner there. And this spring, or this splice, excuse me, you want to do, just open this up a tiny bit with your hammer. Just like that, right. And that bottom channel right underneath there. Open side, on the side you've already screwed down. We stop screwing this down about halfway, just so we can pick this up and slide this in. Makes it a little bit easier to splice the two together. But with that open side, get a hammer, tap that in. So these little grooves are halfway. I go just shy of halfway, just so as I'm hitting this one in, if it does shift a little bit, I'll land about halfway. Your spring pins, same thing. I'm actually gonna put it on this side, but we'll go hammer in about halfway. Same thing on the bottom corner. Okay, perfect, go. Okay, you're good. Nice and flush. So now we spliced it, we're gonna keep screwing it down all the way to the end on both sides. So we're gonna make sure, as you're screwing it down, to check periodically, making sure you're still square, it hasn't shifted at all. You can check your cross stack or your cross measurements, making sure it's still running parallel with each other. Right, so the last thing to note with your encapsulation is making sure you run your encapsulation long enough where it's going into the middle of your cover box. That'll be trimmed down during your phase 2 install, but we want to make sure we leave enough encapsulation into the cover box that we'll have enough to work with. So the last step is make sure you get your final measurements for your auto cover, get your guide space, guide length. All right, if you have any questions about what we did today, go and call the office, talk to your account representative.